want to, again, welcome those of you who just recently came in. Welcome you to the DC Muslim Women's Conference. So excited for what the day has in front of us, for all the things bi'idhnillah that we wish to learn. There's one thing I want to answer, a question that has come up. Some people are saying, it's a DC Muslim Women's Conference. How come there are men here? I see some men hanging out. What are they doing at a women's conference? And I want to answer that very important question for you. Because we need them here. What do you mean we need them here? Why do we need them here? Many times there are conversations that we have about the role of women. Many times there are conversations we have as it relates to how we should interact with our families and how we should be active in establishing this community. Many times we have conversations about how we need to build community and to build our masajid and to make it a more inclusive space. So we need them also to hear some of those same empowering words that we get to hear. Because we get to benefit from their teachers all the time. They have men conferences that we attend all the time, right? But many times we get to listen to their teachers, but they don't get the benefit and the perspective of listening to ours. So we want to give them that opportunity so that we can continue to build women's spaces, that we can continue to build spaces that are welcoming to women, spaces that are not welcoming but understand her presence in that space and the need for her voice and the need for her participation. So today our men are present so they can listen to you and they can learn. May Allah bless them. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
I'm going to learn too. I'm going to learn too, even though I'm not a man. I try to tell my husband all the time that he needs to learn a thing or two. Then he laughs at me because he's a better parent than I am. I've learned a lot from him and how to be a better mom, which is good. So I feel like it's going to be a good, nice two-way exchange, hopefully. There's going to be some men. I think having male allies is really important because sometimes we echo chamber and we're angry or we're concerned or we have insights and we only share it with each other. So I'm happy that people with the Y chromosome are here as well. Okay, so I am going to introduce the next panel, which is going to be the education panel. Pretty excited about it because there's some illustrious women to my left here who are on this panel. And I will just say a quick couple words about education generally. In the United States, there are now statistics showing that women are more highly educated than men in the United States. So there's higher college enrollment, higher enrollment in higher learning. And so that's something that's going to affect also Muslim women as well. So I'm really excited to hear from our speakers about that. And I also think that it proves that women are smarter than men. Okay, so I'm going to first start by, just kidding, introducing the speakers. First is Rahima Abdullah. Sister Rahima Abdullah has been working to educate Muslim children since 1984. She holds a bachelor's of elementary education, a master of curriculum and instruction, and an advanced certificate in teaching and learning. She has taught most grades from preschool to high school and has served as an assistant principal, elementary coordinator, school director, IB coordinator, and principal in various Muslim schools in Northern Virginia. Wow. Okay, I just needed a break. That was amazing. Inshallah. She's currently principal at Washington International Academy in Alexandria, Virginia, and enjoys sharing her passion for reading with her students. Our next speaker will be Dr. Zainab Al-Alawani, founding director of the Islamic Studies program at the Howard University School of Divinity. She's associate professor of Islamic Studies and the chair of the Religious Studies Master of Arts program at Howard. She's an Islamic scholar, researcher, and community activist. Dr. Al-Alawani is also the first female jurist on the board of the Fiqh Council of North America and currently serves as the council's vice chair. Allahu Akbar. All right. It's not like I'm a lawyer or anything. That's cool. All right, so the moderator for this fantastic panel is going to be Nisa Muhammad. I will say that Fatima Knight unfortunately could not be here because her child is sick, so please make prayer for her and that her child is healed. Our moderator, Nisa Muhammad, is just as illustrious. She is the Assistant Dean for Religious Life at Howard. She is responsible for religious programming that serves the various needs of the campus, advocates for the religious needs of Muslim students on campus, and teaches non-academic personal enrichment classes on Islamic tradition. She works closely with the staff at the Office of Dean of Chapel to foster interreligious dialogue and cooperation. Her other responsibilities include organizing Muslim worship and devotion, counseling and advising students, faculty, and staff, and answering a myriad of questions and challenges from race to religion to relationship. She's also the advisor to the MSA there. She works closely with young Muslims by helping them strengthen and affirm their faith in the midst of challenging circumstances like being black and Muslim. Mrs. Muhammad is a graduate of the Hartford Seminary class of 2017, so she's a fresh grad. She's got a lot to say, I'm sure. And she's received a master's degree, mashallah, in Islamic studies and a graduate certificate in Islamic chaplaincy. Wow. And she's currently a doctor of ministry student at Howard University School of Divinity. Let's give them a big round of applause, guys.
Okay, so how's everybody doing? Good? Wonderful. So a recent US-based study found that in 2017, the vast majority of girls as young as 6 do not believe that they are as intelligent as boys. That couldn't be the Muslim girls. That just could not be the Muslim girls. But stereotypes in media and cultural norms instill in women that they are less and that they have less to contribute intellectually than their male peers. Sadly, and this is this really sad part about it, our Muslim girls and young women have fallen into the same path. Unfortunately, more women are in fact leaving Islam because they could not find their rightful place in Islam. In the mosque, on the board, or even in the MSA, and they don't see themselves in the religious text when they hear it spoken on Friday, Juma Khutbah. They don't see themselves. And so in this workshop on education, we want to talk about some of the ways in which we can help women and young women find themselves in Islam. So we're going to talk about this on a variety of different levels. We're going to talk about in terms of initially in the educational stages. And we're going to talk first with Sister Rahima in the challenges that mothers face, and fathers too, in terms of an education, public school or a private Islamic education. What do we choose? Sister Rahima, are our schools properly preparing our children for a promising future in the modern world? Yes, first question. Oh, you're gonna. So let me just give all the questions, and then you can come and take the podium. Are our children, especially our girls, developing strong Islamic identity, or does an Islamic school cripple them for a diverse society? Please welcome Sister Rahima Abdullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I've been asked to talk about education and specifically schooling options for our Muslim children. Now, is the PowerPoint working? Okay. Okay. But before we even talk about school-age children, we need to talk about intentions. What intention do we have for the child before he or she is even born? So I want to tell you about a scholar that I follow, and I found something very pertinent that he put out. This is from Habib Kadam al-Sakaf. He is a noted contemporary scholar from Tarim, Yemen. And on this topic, he said, the noble intention of mothers, fathers, and grandparents has an effect on subsequent generations. That's why we find great imams like Imam Bukhari, Imam Shafi. Before they were born, their parents made noble and pious intentions for their children, and look what came of them. It is quite clear that good pious intentions of parents will impact upon the children. He goes on to tell the story of a noble army officer, and I'm sure that some of you have even heard this story in a Friday khutbah. He goes on to talk about the story of a noble army officer who was referred to a sheikh by his companions because he refused to get married, although there were many eligible women who gladly would have married him. The sheikh asked him, "Why don't you want to get married? Allah has blessed you with wealth, power, prestige." His answer was, "I'll marry when I find a woman who is pious and who wants to be a mother of a child who will be a general, a leader of the Muslims." Well, it just so happened that another pious man in the city, a poor man, had come to the sheikh recently, and he brought his daughter, and he was complaining that his daughter would not accept any of the marriage proposals that were brought to the home. So the sheikh asked her why, and she said, "I don't want to get married to any ordinary type of man. The man I marry, I want him to be the father of a child that is not ordinary, but a really pious one that Allah is going to grant victory to the Muslims through." At the time, the sheikh said, "That's a good intention. Just wait until the right man comes along, and he'll be the father of your children. You have a really good intention." So he went back to this officer, and he said to him, "Don't worry, my son. I know of a lady with the same intention." They became the parents of the great conqueror and general Salahuddin. He's the one who, of course, we know that was responsible for reopening Jerusalem, Al-Quds. So Habib Khadim concluded by saying, "Therefore, the Muslim man and woman should make noble intentions before the birth of a child for that piety. This is first, such that we can produce a generation that holds and bears good benefit for all people, and especially the Muslims." So that's where we need to start. We see that children are a mercy and a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And according to the Sharia, children have certain rights on us as parents. One of those rights that they have that we must fulfill for them is the right for an Islamic upbringing. So that's the education. We as parents are responsible for their religious and spiritual training. Allah Most High says, oh, I'm forgetting how to do this. I'm old school. Let's see. All right. O you who believe, save yourselves and your families from a fire whose fuel is men and stones. That's part of the education that we owe our children. And that's part of our responsibility as well. Before we talk about schools, let's first take a look at the early childhood years, before school age, before the age of discernment. The age of discernment is considered to be 7 years old in Islam. This is the age when our children should begin distinguishing right from wrong on their own. When does this education process start? It starts from birth. And you, mothers in the audience, you are the first teacher. We are their first teachers. Who is it that is best suited for the young child to be with during this important period of shaping the personality and forming good habits? You, we, as the mothers. Who is best to let that child learn how to inquire and develop a love of learning? You, as the mother. And who will not hesitate to show that child right from wrong all from a place of love. You, as mother. Now, I know sometimes circumstances will dictate that you can't be there during this time. I know that because I wasn't able to be there the whole time for my children, and I'm speaking to you, going back, looking at my experience, and regretting the fact that I could not be there for them during all of those critical years. So Allah knows best. That's my opinion, that it's best for them to be with the mothers until this age, but we each have to make our own decision as to what we can do. So now we've arrived at a time where we have to make a choice about formal education for our children. We have some choices. We have homeschool, we have public school, and we have private school. We see why the early years are so important, because this is where you are forming that personality that's going to be able to go out there and forge for themselves. You're not going to be there with them 24/7 anymore. I'm a teacher, and I tried homeschooling some of my kids, and let me just say that my attempts were, I guess you could say, painful at times for both of us. So schooling was a better option for them. My daughter-in-law, on the other hand, homeschools her kids, and mashallah, she does a great job. So that's something, again, that as mothers we have to decide what's best. So if you aren't homeschooling, then it's either public or private schools for your children. Now, for public school, and obviously I've been working in Muslim schools for years, so I'm going to be biased towards the Muslim schools. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about what to look for if you're going the public school route, based from my experience, because I have taught in public schools as well. For the elementary and primary levels, there are lotteries. You have to do your research. There are lotteries for schools that have special programs like Montessori, arts, science, even for the younger ones. So look into that, look into charter schools. When you are talking about the high school level, there are some more options, but again, you have to do your research. Look for the schools that have a really good record of advanced placement courses. Not just that they give the courses, that they teach them, but what are their score rates? You want to send your children to a school where those teachers are nurturing those students and getting them to get good scores on their advanced placement. My particular favorite for high school is the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program. I feel that it's compatible with higher studies, it's compatible with Islam, it's teaching the children to think critically, to research, to do all those skills that they're going to need when they go on. Plus, the program is so darn busy, they're not going to have time to fool around and get into trouble. If they're in the IB program and they're serious, they're going to be working. So what about the Muslim schools? My experience in the Muslim schools has been that there are significantly more girls than boys enrolled, especially at the higher grades. Now, why is that? I ask parents, why? The reason they say is that, and I don't necessarily agree with these, but they say, well, girls need more protection. There are more pulls for girls in the public school. Girls need a more segregated environment. I don't really think that those are excellent reasons or reasons at all to put your girls in a private school. And I know parents who can't afford it and put them in there, and then parents who sacrifice and put them in a Muslim school because they feel like it's safer for the girls. We need our girls to be challenged. So when you go look at Muslim schools, I'm going to skip ahead here because I think I'm out of time. I thought I'd get a little more time because Fatima wasn't here. It's okay? Oh, okay. I tried. So I have a list of questions that I'm hoping that Al-Hijrah will put up maybe on their website or something, and parents can get this list. These are the kinds of questions you need to be asking when you're looking at private schools. So I'm just going to go over a few of them. They're pertinent for all students, but I'm just going to point out the ones that I think, especially if you're looking for your girls, that you need to ask. What kind of community service and leadership opportunities are there in the school? What kinds of extracurricular activities are there in the school? And importantly, are girls encouraged to be in those activities? How can you tell? Number 10, walk around and look at what's going on in the school. Do the girls seem engaged? Girls, especially middle school girls, they develop faster than boys. And they're usually ready to take those leadership positions. The boys, when they get in maybe 10th, 11th grade, that's when they start, getting more mature and feeling like they can do more things. But the girls, it's earlier, so you want to make sure that you get a school that is not suppressing the girls. And the way you do that is to see what kinds of programs do they have, and are the girls involved in those programs. I'll just digress a little bit and tell you that gender bias is not new in Islam. I did not grow up Muslim. I converted back in 1977, but when I was in high school, a guidance counselor told my father that I should go to Fisk University. Do you know why? Because Fisk, and it's a wonderful school. If she hadn't said this, maybe I would have gone. Fisk is across the street from Meharry, which is a medical school. And I would be able to find a doctor for a husband. 1972, I was not Muslim. This was coming from another woman. Told us, go there for this reason. So this has been going on for a while. You've got to protect your girls, not by sheltering them, but by helping them to form that advocacy. So whether they're in a Muslim school or a public school, they can speak for themselves. If you go to public school, be a parent that is there constantly. Volunteer. Be polite. But they don't know everything. It's not like going to the doctor, where the doctor says, your blood test came back, and this is what you have, and this is the medicine you need to take. Guidance counselors and principals don't know that much, okay? They cannot tell. I mean, they know, but they cannot tell by looking at your child, oh, this child should go to this school. If you think something is better for your child, go for it. And make sure that your daughters especially know that they can speak up. And the world is open for them. There are a lot of possibilities. Okay, so I think my time is up. I did have a couple more things on here. I just wanted to show you some girls in action. These are girls doing science. We have boys who do science too, but I picked the girls' pictures. These are our girls' sports teams. These are several different schools. I don't know if any of the other schools are here. Forgive me if I didn't ask permission, but we had this. There was a tournament. These are girls and some boys also out in an outdoor activity. And this is one of our big community service projects. So make sure that you look for, this and better when you look for schools for your girls. So I didn't ask permission for this, but WIA is the brainchild or brainchild of Al-Hijrah. And we have an open house coming up. So I'm going to leave some flyers if anybody's interested. The school is pre-K through 8. So I will ask one of the conference organizers where these can be. And the information is here. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you so much for that. And one of the things that's really interesting about that, when they leave school and then they go to high school, and then it's time to think of college. And where do they go for college? And so what's interesting about the years in which young people are in college is that college is a time when young people are in the process of changing their mind. And that can be so frustrating for parents and loved ones. It's like, okay, I didn't send you to college for that. And what was very interesting, we had some parents come to campus, to Howard University last weekend, who brought their young people back, and then they came to visit, a surprise visit to some students. And when the parents came on campus, the young girl had a nose ring, and she had a pierced belly, pierced navel, and the mother was just dumbfounded. And these were Muslims. And she was just, this is not how I brought her. I didn't bring her like this. The mother was in tears. So those who are on the outside, could you please come to the middle? If you're done with eating, can you please come to the middle? I'll just continue to talk a little bit while you're moving. So this Muslim mother was just distraught. The daughter was, of course, distraught also. She didn't know her mother was coming. It was a surprise visit. And she was, distraught also. But one of the things that we have to remember is that young people are in the process of changing their minds. And if parents have done their job and planted the seeds of Islam properly, the seeds will grow. And just because children act a certain way does not mean they're going to continue going in what we may perceive as the wrong direction. Children try things how many did something in college and then they just went back to doing the right thing? How many tried something that they knew was crazy and they just tried it just to try it and regretted it as soon as they did it and wish nobody ever knew about it, and because it was just a time to just try and experiment. But the thing is, we have to be able to give young people the room and the opportunity to make a mistake. How do they learn? How do they grow? And if you can't handle the rub, how will we ever be polished? That's from Rumi. If we can't handle the rub, how will we ever be polished? And so college is an opportunity and a time when young people change their mind. It is a process of growth and development. It's a process of rebellion. Parent says A, the young person says B. Parent says B, young person says A. Just because the parent says A, the young person says B. They may really want A, but just because the parent says A, the young person says B. Just because. Just because. And so when looking for the right school, it's also good to look at, do they have an MSA? Is there a Muslim chaplain at that school? Is there someone at that school that can help guide your young person to help them make the right decisions? And alhamdulillah, Howard University now, I'm the assistant dean for religious life, and before me, they didn't have anybody for 12 years. And so the Muslims there kind of floundered. And so alhamdulillah, I am there now to help guide them and help them to do the right thing. I had a student come to me to say, you know what? He's married, he wants to get married, but he wants to drop out of school. He's a junior. He thinks, I should drop out of school. I want to get married. I think I would do better being a husband rather than finishing school. Okay, you have 3 more semesters. Your parents have sacrificed, put you through private school, got loans, and now you want to drop out of school to now be a husband. Why not finish school? Why not finish school and then go, well, I don't want to commit zina, I don't want to, do whatever. I want to be a good husband, I want to do all of this. I want to be a good Muslim. They're in the process of changing their mind. How do they grapple with all of these decisions? How do they handle the challenges of wanting to be good Muslims? And especially at Howard University, a lot of the students are converts. They hear something and they convert on their own. They want to be good Muslims. And so the challenge that we're faced with is really helping young people be in a position to make the really good decisions. And so we're going to hear now from Dr. Zainab Alwani. And I'm so very happy to hear from her, because not only is she this amazing person that she is, as we heard from her biography, but she's also my advisor at Howard University School of Divinity. She's my professor, so I get to hear from her and interact with her on a variety of different levels. I bought some papers for her to sign for my classes, so I am just in awe of her. So she is so wonderful. And some questions we really want for her to address is Islamic law still relevant today in American society? I mentioned some questions about getting married and divorce and dowry for students who really want to know, who have heard about these things. I want to be a good Muslim. I want to do what I hear other people talk about. What role does it play in our community, in society at large? And how do we use Islamic law to address our differences? And how do we educate the general public about it? Please welcome her with a warm round of applause, Dr. Zainab Alwani.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. She's looking for an A. And of course, she's an A student, by the way, but A plus maybe. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ما شاء الله. Thank you very much for the organizers for organizing this wonderful conference, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us all to the best and to do the best, not only for women, men, children, humanity. And that's what the goal for this type of discussions. And when we say this is a women conference, it means is an ummah's conference, because one woman can change the entire nation. And that woman, it's not because she works by herself as an individual, but she is the mother, and she is the cornerstone of the family, and she is the cornerstone of the community, and she is the cornerstone of humanity. So that's why it's important for all of us to know our role on this earth. I tried my best to change the topic from Islamic law, because when it comes with Islamic law, I know I teach this for the entire year, and for students who they come for 2 semesters, not only one. And when I was surprised to have this topic, said, okay, so I sent an email. It seems like the email didn't go through, and still I have to address this issue. I will just cover the basics, but I will ask you, who wants to be a jurist or faqihah? No one? Good job. At least we have one. So, thank you. Jazakallah khair. I think before I start giving you the concept, and this is what I will cover, the basics. It's just to have some of the concepts that so many people are confused about. And then I will provide 2 examples. Okay, thank you. And through the examples, inshallah, we will explain more about this, and then the conclusion. But really before this, I want you to also understand, when we say jurist or faqih, it doesn't mean only for scholars in that position, but this is even when you ask the question, and when you raise the question itself, it has that, and I will show you with example from the Quran and from the first generation who they lived with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How do we raise that question, and how do we ourselves contribute to advance our understanding of not only Islamic law, and this is part of the definition, but Islamic community and Islamic life. So in the beginning, I will just try to ask the question, what are really our priorities? What kind of priorities we have? Do we as even family, individuals, families, and communities define our priorities, especially at this very difficult time? And to just connect this with that topic of Islamic law, we hear all the time about Sharia. And of course, from the media, most of the time it comes in a negative way. And even when I teach my students, Muslim students, at George Washington or Howard, so many times the first class, the second class, they have that negative image and understanding of Sharia. Is just because of that impact from the media. So this it will be our first really stop to understand what Sharia is. I want you to, I will just define it as not to make it at least boring for you. The linguistic understanding of Sharia, I'll go with the linguistic, start with this. It's from Shara. And Shara and Sharia, that meaning, it's a path or a road to, leads you to the guidance. But also the language, Arabic language, it gives us, Sharia, it means a stream of water. And that stream of water, and I want you to use your imagination, that imagine that the falls, the source of water, it comes from that beautiful falls. It's pure, fresh, nice smell. And then the water will go through different streams and different lands. And while the water is pure, water, white, fresh, now it comes through the streams. And with the streams, it changes the color. That color becomes maybe with mud, it will be brown. With the grass, maybe it will be green. And it changes into different, with red, other colors. The colors and the changing, the water itself, it comes from the main source. And the source is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the Quran. And then when it goes through lives of people and cultures, now that when people, they try to understand from the source the meanings, and then they try to apply it in their lives. And when they try this, it changes that color, and it becomes, it's still water. It's still water, but the color is different. And that color, when it comes, of course, with how we understand the Quran and the Sunnah, and we try to implement it into our lives, and it changes, of course, and build different cultures and different societies. That's what I want you to understand about Sharia. So Sharia is the Quran and the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that very close from that fresh water, and is still pure, and it gives you the first generation and produce that first generation because it's very close from that pure, fresh water. So this is the culture, the first culture, human culture, that really implement the Quran and the Shara. Now the fiqh. What does it mean, fiqh? Fiqh is a human understanding. And scholars will interact and engage with the main sources, the Quran and the Sunnah as implementation of the teachings of the Quran, and they come up with different views, perspectives. But mainly, the question, it comes from the society to the scholars, and the scholars try to engage with the sources to come up with the answers for that societal questions and challenges. 5 minutes? I have 30 minutes, by the way. Okay. Yeah, that's what they told me. Yeah. Thank you. I will use my authority as jurist. So anyway, and I want you also to know that for Sharia, the characteristics of Sharia, the maqasid of Sharia, the principles, the higher principles of Sharia, it's all they have to, as scholars, as jurists, they have to understand this. But they have another mission. And that mission is how to be able to understand their reality. And that comes from all of us, from our challenges, your questions, the society that you live in. So when you bring your challenges to the fuqaha, you are challenging them to bring the best out of their knowledge and understanding and engage with you back and forth until they reach the point that really provide the most accurate answers for the community to have the best. Good? Okay. For now, for this, of course, we have thousands, millions of collections of volumes of different schools of thought. And I would also say, subhanAllah, even the beginning of the fiqh, it starts after, of course, this is in the 8th to 12th century. At that time, when the cities are established, now the community, the elite, the intellectual community established, and at that time, of course, as the intellectual institutions now begin with the schools of thought, different madahib, different schools, different students, different leaders. And as we know, we have Sunni, Shia, but still they go from the same source, that fresh water, and then it changes into different views. And of course, we have thousands and thousands of collections of different opinions from our scholars. How do we deal with this? This is another part. Here I want to mention, before I come to the examples, I would like also to mention about the role of women. And this is my question. What is the role of women today and in the past when it comes with the issue of Islamic law, scholarship? Islamic law, when you say Islamic law, you have this, as I explained about fiqh. But fiqh, it takes also different steps. You have all this fiqh culture, what call it urf, the courts and the procedures of the courts, which we call it qanun, is all under Islamic law. So Sharia is different. Sharia is the main source that it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything when you see or you say this is Islamic law, jurisprudence, Islamic jurisprudence, it means everything is. The fiqh, the madahib, the schools, the court, the culture, all this is part of that methodologies that the experts or the scholars, they use for this. So your question will be under the methods and methodologies and how you ask the question, and now how the engagement of the fuqaha or jurists will come to answer the question. For women, what was the role of women during that time? Maybe you don't hear that many women as faqihat, but there are in our past, in our history, tens and hundreds of them. Each one of the leaders of our madahib schools, whether Sunnis or Shia, all of them, their teachers were women. And I can count, and I worked on this and have many studies about this. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, you have Shafi'i, Abu Hanifa, Malik, radiallahu anh, from the Ja'far al-Sadiq and the other schools, all of them, they have teachers, women teachers, who they not only taught them, but even they wrote books and volumes of understanding. I will go back to Sayyidah Aisha, and I give you two examples. The first example is about Sayyidah Aisha, and for this, I want you to know how do we become really involved without maybe calling ourselves faqihat or not faqihat, but this is the main role for us all, as our sister mentioned here, about the intention from the beginning and how you build, what kind of scholars, what kind of girls and women and boys and men will produce from that knowledge. Two priorities. we have to understand when it comes to this issue. Dealing with Islamic law, it's not a question of is it relevant or not. It's how we deal with it, how we approach it, how we are engaged. All of us are responsible to advance this kind of understanding. So that's why when you go for fatwa shopping, this is not the best way. This is not the way of the accurate way for Muslims to be responsible. No, we have to learn and we have to start from the source. We have to build our knowledge, and that knowledge to build our relationship with the Quran, with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and understand how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam transformed the first generation based on the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Listen to Sayyidah Aisha, and how did Sayyidah Aisha was a role model for men and women, not only for her generation, but for humanity. Sayyidah Aisha, the mother of believers, and as you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed all the mothers of believers to be the teachers for Muslims and beyond. She used the Quran as her sole and absolute source, to even when the companions will come with a hadith, she will evaluate it, analyze it based on the Quran. Listen to two of the hadith that she herself argued with the companions about it. In Musnad al-Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, he narrated that two men entered Sayyidah Aisha's house and said, "We heard Abu Huraira saying that the Prophet ﷺ used to say, affliction resides in women, donkeys, and homes." Sayyidah Aisha heard what they're saying, and she was very disturbed about what they said. And she said, I swear, you can hear her tone, "I swear by he who revealed the Quran upon Abil Qasim, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he did not speak like this. Rather, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the people used to say during Jahiliyyah, pre-Islamic era, women, animals used to for transport, women and animals who used for transportation and homes bring bad omen." That's during Jahiliyyah. It's not the saying of the Prophet, but he was saying it. And what she also commented on this, she said sometimes some of the companions will come late, and when they don't hear the entire hadith or from the beginning, or they come in the beginning and they leave, so they don't understand the entire hadith. See, this is methodology. This is for a scholar to understand this. The second one, when she tried to analyze this, she bring the Quran to and she said, "Haven't you heard or you read in the Quran in Surah Al-Hadid, Surah 57, and the ayat is 22 to 23, and please go back and reflect on this beautiful surah, Surah Al-Hadid, the iron." She said, "No calamity," this is in the Quran, "no calamity can ever befall the earth, and neither your own selves, unless it be laid down in the book before we bring it into being. Verily that it is easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that you may not despair over whatever good has escaped you, nor rejoice over whatever good has been given to you." In this example, she explained to them how you analyze and read the hadith in the light of the Quran. At the same time, she also provided that methodology of analyzing the text and the isnad, both. And the second one, and I will come to my second example, she heard the hadith, Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu, also he said, and reported about cutting our prayers. And that hadith, it's also, he mentioned that 3 things that will cut your prayers. It's women, donkey, and black dog. At that time, Sayyidah Aisha, even they mentioned in that hadith, she wore one of her slippers and she ran looking for Abu Huraira to correct the hadith. And she said, would you equate us or equal us with donkeys and dogs? By Allah, the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to go about his salah, and it was a small room. As I was stretched on the bed between him and the Qibla, a direction of prayer, and I felt I need to go to use the restroom and did not want to stay there and cause destruction to the Prophet ﷺ, so I quietly sneaked between his feet. So now she analyzed the hadith by the hadith, by her experience herself. And in this case, this is another methodology. I will use the last example here. The last example in Surah 59, and this surah, it's Surah Al-Mujadila, 58, I'm sorry. In Surah Al-Mujadila, there was an ordinary old woman called Khawla bint Tha'laba. This lady, she faced a problem with her husband. And he used the custom, which is that it was very well known in Jahiliyyah. They call it al-dhihar. Al-dhihar, when the husband will call his wife, you anti alayya ka dhahri ummi, you're just like my mother. And in this case, that relationship, it cuts between the wife and the husband by just mouth, his words. So she understood from the beginning the entire higher principle of Islam, and she understood the maharim, the system of maharim within the Quran. And she said this relationship cannot be determined except by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And she went to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she argued with him. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, maybe this is a divorce. She said, it's not a divorce, it's something else. And she explained about her life and how she spent her life with this man, and now he ignored this, and until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayah. It's a very strong one in the beginning. قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heard that conversation between you and that lady. And the first time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala combined the two, both of them, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the lady, in that ayah. Please go and reflect on this. And immediately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala analyzed and gave the answer about this issue, that it should be abolished from this. This is a juristic, from one side, juristic hukum, but at the same time, the lady, what she did, she wasn't faqihah, but she asked the right question. She analyzed her own environment, and she identified the problem, the challenge, and she came to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ with a strong understanding that she kept arguing with him, this is not the right way. And at the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only answered the question for that generation, but is to have this until the day of judgment. What do we learn from the two examples? What do we learn from the ladies that are fourth mothers? What do we learn from this kind of experience? And especially we live in this very complex situation. We have hundreds of questions. We have to know how to prioritize our questions and our challenges. And when we ask, you don't just go as this digital world today and shop for the answers that to fit and to be, of course, your own agenda or your own personal whatever views on this. No, you have to seek the truth, because that truth will not only answer for your present time, but it's for the future generation. What do we say to the future generation? We destroy so many avenues, and we need now to stop and gain knowledge, the right knowledge, build our relationship with the Quran, and try to listen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said He heard that woman, and we don't give ourselves time to hear and listen first to the Quran, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to say. and then after that you come to the hearing, and then it come to implement this. At the end, change does not come sudden. It takes time. Everyone in this room is responsible before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is responsible before the history. It is responsibility, our responsibility before or also for next generation. So really the conclusion, I will end with this inshallah. Many lessons, of course, we can learn from this, but this is just the question here. What kind of legacy we want to leave here in America, in this world? It's and this is not only for us. I have to say, everywhere you are in, whether school, work, university, institutions, you have to leave. You have to leave your own footprints. And that footprints, it depends on you, what kind of one you. Working on building a legacy that benefit and serve humanity. Always think about humanity. We are one family. And this is not only for us, it's for humanity. And think also, as American Muslim women should be able to monitor the society at large and the Muslim community at the same time. And we have to be true and justice. Yasmin, if you allow me, I want, as a conclusion of my speech, really to remind you and remind myself all the time about the last words of my father that he left for all of us, not only for his children. I sanctify justice, celebrate freedom, and honor humanity. While demonstrating gentleness with the weak, I remind the strong that there is always someone who is stronger than him. I advise the rich to fulfill the rights of the poor, while I remind the poor to ask for their own. I think I love this. To fight lies and deceit and forbid corruption. I love goodness and gentleness and reject evil. I invite to piety and reject violence. I cling to the rope of guidance and uphold the truth. I seek reconciliation to the extent possible. I yearn for peace and despair war. I love humility and strive for a good life. I stand in awe of death, yet I believe that this is a bridge I must cross from a fleeting life to one that is eternal. I desire the best ending and seek refuge in Allah, God, from the contrary. I love heaven and detest hellfire. I seek security and hate instability. I abhor hatred. I'm not profane, destructive, or corrupt. My lineage extends to Adam and Eve. For Adam is my father, and Eve my mother. All of humanity are my sisters and brothers. I do not disdain, betray, or humiliate a single human being. Rather, I strive to guide the human beings, light their path, and walk with them along the path to heaven. I seek to be a roadblock between them and falling into hellfire. I love the universe and belong to it. I love all my neighbors in the universe, including its trees, plants, rocks, animals, mountains, and rivers. God most majestic has created me from this earth. To this earth he will return me it. And from this earth he will restore me once again. To this earth I belong, and for its cultivation I call. My desire is to elevate the truth, My goal is to spread peace and security in it. My means is to struggle with my own soul in order for peace to be realized and security to prevail. I invite to God, to whom is my ultimate return. Peace is my objective. Security is my desire. Terrorism is my enemy. Conflict is my adversary. Inner peace is my pursuit. Do you recognize me? Do you know on this earth anyone who parallels this description? I am Muslim. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
I think at this time, this concludes our education panel. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.